Good morning, my friends. Jerry Rosa here in the Rosa String Works workshop. And I want to apologize for missing last Friday, but it really couldn't be helped, I don't think. Although I guess in hindsight I could have. I could have done it the way I'm doing it this morning because I'm doing it without our internet service. And our internet service was really wonderful for last several years. I was using the 4G antenna shop, which I think they're just basically resellers of cell service off of cell towers. And their service has always been super good for a very rural location like mine. But I think what has happened, and this is just what I think, I don't know this for a fact, I believe they have gotten the greed bug, and they have cut the service back and raised the prices, and now they're trying to sell me more stuff to get back what I used to have. That's what it sounds like to me. Maybe I'm jumping to a slight conclusion because I don't think I have all the facts, but that's what it appears to be at the moment. So, that brings me to my very first topic, and that is, I'm looking for a better rural internet service. If you all know of something, now, I am not at all interested in satellite services like HughesNet and things like that. Those services absolutely are in the trash can, in my opinion. I have tried them, several different ones, in fact, and they just absolutely have no ability to do what I need to do. I have also tried watered down DSL because we're out in the country so far that DSL is really bad by the time it gets here, and our phone lines are really bad on top of that, so that doesn't work. I have tried radio wave internet, which is basically where I put a 65-foot tower up on my tallest hill, climbed that tower at least a dozen times myself, which really is kind of crazy when you think about it because you're 6.5 stories up hanging on a little tiny wire tower. Just nuts. But anyway, that worked the best of anything up to the point where I got the 4G antenna service. Now, I have heard about Nomad. I have been trying to get a hold of Nomad for a better internet service, and Nomad seems like they would be a good option, but they don't seem to be real anxious to get a hold of me because I've left them several messages. And the other thing I'm interested in is the Starlink, and I see someone else commenting on that. I would love to get in on their beta trial, but so far I've put my information in on there a couple of times, once several months ago, probably 6 months ago, and just recently, it was, matter of fact, I think just last night I sent my information in again. To Starlink. So if anybody out there has connections with Starlink, I would love to be a beta tester for them. So, or if you know some other really good service, let me know. Starlink may be coming before long, and I see someone mentioning that again there too. So yeah, that would be great, but we don't have it at the moment, or at least I can't get it. Okay, moving off of that subject, the cell phone will have to do this morning, and so far it seems to be working. I don't see anybody complaining, so I think it's working. Moving on to the next thing. T-shirts, still not too late to get them for Christmas. Melissa will be happy to send them out. By the way, just on the T-shirt subject, I have the common ones that we stock on my website, but if you need a specific size, if you get a hold of Melissa directly, in other words, via email or just call on the office phone, which is on the website, she will work with you to try to get you a specific size the next time she orders. So anyway, that's the name of that tune. The California guitar isn't. That's a long story, but it truly isn't California at all. How I got California on that, I have no idea, But that guitar ended up going to its home in Virginia just in the last couple of days. And to Don, I apologize. I don't know why I thought you were from California. Don and his buddy his buddy is a pilot, and Don and his buddy fly all over the United States doing all kinds of radio testing is the best way I can put it in layman's terms. And they test for different leaking signals that shouldn't be leaking, like, say, out of fiber cables and things like that. Well, anyway, they make a long story short, they flew in their really cool plane, and you will be seeing a video of that plane and some more details about the guitar and stuff at a later time when we have time to put all that together. But it is a really cool plane, so you'll enjoy seeing that down the road. But I say hi to Don and Brian, who were here, and anyway, it was a fun time. I went out to the airport and watched them take off in that thing. It's a pretty cool plane. I'm not going to give it away. You have to wait and see it. Let's see. But as I mentioned, it's not California. So all of that you were just lied to. That's all I can tell you. I have an idea for a video that I wanted to mention to you guys and see if you have much interest in this. I was thinking about doing a video on just machines and equipment and things that I have built. For instance, and I'll just try to name a quick lineup. I built a 30-ton shop press in the other room. Now I have it actually. Now it's actually only 20-ton, but it's pneumatic operated now, which is better in my opinion. And like a grapple bucket that I made for my skid steer, a log splitter, a dump trailer, my sawmill, hydraulic brush hog. There's just all kinds of equipment, not to mention, the equipment that I have here in the shop, too, that I could include in that video. So if that's the kind of thing you'd like to see, speak up, and we'll, try to get something like that put together. I thought it might be kind of interesting, because there is a lot of stuff. I have made a whole bunch of stuff. I got to thinking about it the other day, and it even kind of surprised me. Let's see here. I think I've covered most of the things on my note. We will get to questions and answers in a little bit, and just another reminder that when you pose a question, be sure to put a question mark at the beginning of the question. That helps me find it much faster. And even a couple of question marks at the beginning is even better. Bruce says, ironically, the voice is in sync better now. Well, that's a good thing. Good morning, Bruce. Bruce had his accident, as I mentioned, in a car wreck, and I think he's healing up better now. He's getting along. Yes, on the equipment. Cool. Definitely on the tools. Okay, good. Well, it looks like that would be a good video. I think you would enjoy it. I think it would be something you'd like, because it's a big variety of stuff. It's not just one thing. Next thing I wanted to just mention is that I've started a new project. I've started a 12-string guitar for David, who is on here this morning, I believe. And anyway, good morning, David, out there in, I think he's in Scotland, if I'm not mistaken. I know he wants a Scottish flag on his guitar. I shouldn't even have said that, because that's kind of a neat little addition to the guitar when we get there. But it's going to be a 12-string. So I've actually sort of started that. Here's what I've done so far. I've made this way more than I need for his 12-string guitar. But that's what I've made so far. And you think, what is that? Well, again, it's not going to focus because we don't have the autofocus on. But it's herringbone, basically, and it's dividers for the back, the 3-piece back that I make. I thought I'd just tell you quickly how you make that stuff, and then you'll see it in the video down the road. But basically, you cut a whole bunch of real thin strips like this, and in this case, I used hedge and I used cherry. This is just a piece of maple, just as an example. but you cut a bunch of strips like that. Then you just glue them in a sandwich. And here's kind of that sandwich, if you will. Now, this is already cut on a 45, but you got to picture this going, in a long strip. And then you cut a bunch of 45s across it. After you do that, you take those 45s, you take those individual 45s like this, and then you just put them together into a herringbone pattern there. I think you can see it. It's not focused, but I think you can still see that it is a herringbone. Once you get all of those glued together, then you get them in a long strip then at that point. Then you put maple on the sides of that. And then when you're all done with that, then you cut them into these little strips. It's quite a process. It took me like 3 solid days to get all this done. So I've decided I'm going to go into the business of selling these now. $100 a piece to just make ends meet. And that's just a break-even price. It was just nuts. It really was. But it was a lot of fun, good learning experience. And I used my buddy John Manura's AccuSlice system, which hooked onto the bandsaw. I showed that briefly in another shop talk. That machine is cool. I thought I could cut all those real thin strips just by running them through the, just running them through the fence and making them accurate. Not a chance. You can't get them even sort of as close to as accurate by running them through the fence. I thought I could. I really did. And I thought, well, I'm going to just try that. So I did it, and then you start measuring it, and it measures different everywhere. When you run it through John's machine, they come out measuring within 1,000th or 2, all the way down perfect. Just absolutely perfect. So that machine that he made, it is expensive, but it is worth it. Look up AccuSlice on the internet, and I will have more on that in the video coming up down the road. Okay, so that's the 12-string project, which you will be seeing before too long. There's my spoiler alert for the mandolin up there. It's got its final varnishes on it, I believe. At least I hope it does. It looks so shiny in that picture, it doesn't look all that great. But that's okay, because I don't want to give it completely away, because it looks beautiful up close. I mean, it is just gorgeous. So you're going to like that. I have a guest coming in on Tuesday, I think, to play the mandolin. And that means I got to get that sucker set up. Because it hasn't even had strings on it yet, of course. It hasn't even been set up one time yet. So I do have a guest coming in, I believe it is Tuesday, to, we're going to do a little picking session or something, and you'll enjoy that. In fact, it's a female guest, and it's a young girl that, she was a young girl when I started her on mandolin. I think she was 11 years old or maybe 10 years old. And she's a real good mandolin player, a real good singer now, so you'll enjoy that. Let's see. What was the next thing I was going to cover? I think we're just about done with what I had planned this morning, and we'll be ready for questions here in a few minutes. I have just a couple of emails. I actually had a third email, but I decided not to cover it because it would kind of give away a kind of a Christmas surprise. It's not really a Christmas gift, but a Christmas surprise, and I don't want to give that away. So I'm only going to talk about these 2 emails real quick. The first one is a question. It's about the razor blade technique that we use to level fretboards. First of all, I'll just say that not all of these razor blades are created equal. There are some that are much thinner than others. I prefer the thicker ones. These are about a 9 or 11, I think these are about 11 thousandths. Let me just find my calipers here. Let me see if I can tell you how thick they are. Actually, these are 9 thousandths, 9.5 thousandths. But some of them are thinner than that, and they give too much. The thicker they are, the better they work. I think the trick to actually using them to scrape a fretboard flat is how you hold it. And this is just a piece of wood. But anyway, it's, you got to get a good grip on it, a good firm grip. You can't like do loosey-goosey like this. That isn't going to work. You got to get a good firm grip on it, and you do a positive scrape like that. And that's how we do it. And, it's got to be kind of like one motion completely across the fret also. Like if you kind of go halfway or whatever and, do it, you're probably going to get scratches. You kind of scrape all the way across the fret like that in one motion. And the firmer you hold it, the better. And I generally hold it fairly straight up and down, maybe just a slight slope toward where I'm going, but fairly straight up and down. I hope that helps you with your technique. It works for us. I'd be lying if I said you never see any marks at all, but the marks should be very minimal when you're done. And if you really have any additional, if you really want to, you could clean it up a little bit with a little bit of sandpaper or something like that. But overall, you should be able to just go straight to oil after you do that if you do it well. Okay, so anyway, Alan, that was Alan Dust that asked that question, and Alan's in Florida apparently. Hopefully that helps you with the answer on that one, Alan. This next one is, well, I don't know, it's just really complimentary. And I get so many of these letters, and I hate to try to read them all, but this one was especially nice. The reason, it just sounds too self-serving, I think, but it's almost embarrassing. And if I read this whole letter, I would start crying. It's really that nice. So I'll read some of it. This is from Kathleen, and I'm not going to mention the last name. It says, Dear Mr. Rosa, my name is Kathy, and the good Lord blessed me with a man of faithfulness and God-given character. He, however, has suffered low self-esteem over the years. He has always played guitar and loved our family sing-alongs on Sunday, until the death of his uncle and the disability of my father-in-law. His joy and passion is now found in rebuilding stringed instruments. That is why God led him to your videos. I write this with tears in my eyes. The joy and encouragement that you, through God, have brought him is immeasurable. He just sold 3 guitars and 1 mandolin to the same man in Fort Smith, Arkansas last week. You have blessed our family more than you could ever know. Now I'm skipping quite a bit here because it would be hard to read. I thank you is not enough. How do you show appreciation to someone who has given a man back his purpose? And the answer is, she said, you cannot. My husband would love nothing more than to stop by your shop one day and just silently observe your work. And anyway, it goes on, and then she says, God bless you, Kathy. Well, God bless you too, Kathy, and thank you very much for the very kind letter. I really appreciate it. I do get a lot of notes and things like that. It's very touching because I sincerely had no visions of anything like that occurring when I started this. The truth of it is, as I have mentioned before, I started putting things on YouTube just because I thought it might bring in a little bit of business. Boy, was I wrong about that. It has brought in so much business that I turned so many people away that I just hate myself because I really hate turning people away. It just kills me to do that, but the reality is I don't have a choice. Okay, well, that brings me through everything that I think I had intended to cover this morning. No, it's not either. I've got a couple of pre-made things here to show you. So let's go here first. Before we go to questions and answers, I got 2 more things. Yesterday, I worked in the shop until about, I'm going to say 2:30ish. Something like that. And then, you might think, well, he's just going to go take it easy, right? Well, here's what I did. So this pile of firewood I cut from from about 3 o'clock till 4:30 and split it and everything. And that, you might look at that and go, well, that's not that much. That's probably close to a dump truck and a half, I would say. And my dump truck is 8 foot by 9 foot by almost 2 foot tall. So that's probably a dump truck and a half. And you would think, well, from 3 o'clock to 4:30, it's working pretty good. But the truth is, and I promise you, that's only half of it. There's another pile that large in the back of the property as well. So when I tell you I cut a lot of firewood, I am not exaggerating. I cut a lot of firewood. Now here's the really, really, really sad part. Is that pile right there will last about 1 week if it's really cold. The other pile, about 1 week. So there's about 2 weeks worth of firewood that I cut yesterday afternoon. And if it weren't for my log splitter that I made for the front of my Bobcat, yeah, I would be a dead man. I couldn't possibly keep up. So, but you still have to cut all that with a chainsaw. And so all that was cut with the chainsaw and then split. And just cutting it with the chainsaw, as heavy as my big chainsaw is, that's a lot of work. Okay, the next thing I wanted to talk to you about is my game camera. Now, I'm going to give you a little fair warning here. There are some dead critters in these videos, and when I say dead critters, it's just nature. Things die, and when they die, critters come to where they are, and that's what this is in this case. Now, I will admit that I actually pulled this dead deer into a location where the camera would take a better photo. But I knew, it'd be kind of interesting to see what animals come to the carcass. And so that's what you're about to see. If that kind of thing upsets you, you may look away now. But I think you'll enjoy this because it's some interesting critters. Here we go. Okay, that is a red-tailed hawk, and of course you can see him on top of the deer there. And look how large that thing is. He's big. There's a raccoon, and that's in the darkness, and the camera was getting a little fog on it there. So there is Mr. Wile E. Coyote. That's one shot of him, and he's a pretty coyote, as you can see. And I think the other picture, that picture should have been first, but it just didn't work out that way. But anyway, you can see him sneaking up on it there. Those coyotes, they're pretty scared all the time. Anyway, there's a bunch of crows, as you might expect to see. And there's probably another shot of those. So, a dead carcass like that, it doesn't go to waste. People think, what a waste, but look at all the animals that it feeds. Now, these are just plain old buzzards here. And, a lot of buzzards come to it, So nothing goes to waste in nature. The next one here is a bald eagle, as you can see. Now, I was hoping, the reason I actually put the camera out there was I was hoping to get eagles. I had seen a pair of bald eagles, which were, I think, much larger than this one. This one appears to be an adult because he's got a full white head. But anyway, we're back to the hawk there now. So anyway, I thought you might get a kick out of just seeing the different critters. I didn't get it on camera, but some other critters that have visited it were, believe it or not, other deer walked by it, and another thing that has gone by it is some bobcats. So anyway, I kind of thought the wild hogs might show up there too, because wild hogs will eat meat like that. So I haven't seen that happen yet. But anyway, I am also putting just a regular feeder out there, and eventually we'll be having the camera set up on a regular feeder too. So you'll be seeing, some more critters down the road. There's no telling what you'll see here. I'm almost expecting to see a bear and possibly even a mountain lion, because I definitely saw a mountain lion here one time, and people think I'm crazy, but it's the truth. I know what I saw. So anyway, I think that's it this morning. So let's talk questions now. Do I see any questions out there? It looks like. Why do you prefer traditional friction pegs for violins rather than the geared pegs? Just innovative criminalistic. Well, I guess that is probably one of the traditional things that I like to stick to, George. There's no specific reason why it couldn't be mechanical, but the thing is, you've got those fine tuners on the tailpiece that are also mechanical, and they adjust the tuning very nicely. Pretty much on a violin or any violin class instrument, here's the bottom line. Every single thing about them is friction. There's nothing held together other than glue. Everything else is held together with friction. In other words, the pegs are friction, the sound post is friction, the bridge itself is friction, the tailpiece is friction, the end pin is friction. Everything is held together with friction, nothing is glued. So putting the mechanical tuners on it just kind of spoils that for you, and that's just more like a traditional thing, and that's the only main reason for me is why I just prefer to keep it traditional. So I hope that answers your question. Dead critters are tasty. Yes, they are, especially when you are a genetic defect like me and don't eat any vegetables at all. And if you want to know why, watch my video on being a genetic defect. It's called I'm a Genetic Defect, and it's out there, so take a look. Those guys make short time of it. Yeah, they do. They eat them quickly. Looking for more questions here. Yeah, the geared pegs weigh more too. I'm building a guitar. Should I use Nitro or True Oil? Well, either one of them is a real good finish. The True Oil, I want to say it's easier. In some ways it is easier. Some ways it's just as difficult. Nothing you do when it comes to finish is simple or easy. If you really, really want a good finish, you just have to do it and over and sand it and over. I mean, that's the way you get a good finish. So both of them are about equal work in some ways of thinking about it. But overall, I'd say your True Oil is probably easier because you don't need any special equipment. You can apply it with a brush. You can even apply it with your fingers. So the True Oil is probably the easiest overall. But neither one of them are really, really, really simple. And the other additional problems you have with the lacquer is that unless you buy the good retarder, you will probably have problems with moisture. So unless you really have a very dry, controlled shop. Let's see. Hopefully that answers your question, Rasmus. Does building a 12-string guitar take twice the work of building a 6-string? No, it does not. It's not really much different than building a 6-string. About the only time it takes more time is when you start putting the strings on it and doing the setup. I mean, it really takes a lot more time there, but the rest of it is roughly the same. You got to drill more holes for the pegs too. So yeah, and other than those little obvious things, it's really no different. You got to beef them up a little bit more because if you don't, you will be sorry. That you didn't. Are you taking new instruments yet, or are you still getting caught up? Okay, Jason, good question. I'm glad you asked that. Here's the truth of the matter. I don't like to harp on this because it sounds so negative, but the truth is the hands just aren't doing it anymore. They really aren't. I try not to say too much about it, even though they just are killing me. That's the truth of it. So the bottom line is I'm not taking any more deposits for building custom instruments at this time. I'm not going to take any more. I've got several more to build. I'm hoping I can get through the several more. And then if I get through the instruments that I've already taken commissions on, if I get through those, then I have about 2 or possibly 3 instruments that I want to build for myself. If I get through that, then we'll talk about building more custom instruments. In terms of repair, the policy is still, I'm only accepting instruments that physically walk through the door at this time. So I know that doesn't work for everyone, and I am sorry about that. I really am, because I hate the fact that I can't accept them being shipped in. But we just can't handle the load. And, again, with the hands the way they are, I'm working less every day, it seems like. It's just the way it is, and so it's a good question, but no, we're really just accepting instruments that physically walk through the door. So if you're in the area, passing through the area, or you want to make a trip and stay at our rental house up here, whatever the case might be, in those cases you can bring an instrument to us and we will accept it. Even those are sitting for a while. I've got one sitting over here on the floor that I've got to get to. It's a repair that, some people specifically say they only want me to work on it. And so I've got to work that in between the custom builds that I'm working on. All right. So that hopefully answers your question about that. It's not, don't think that we're going out of business anytime soon. That's not going to happen. The videos are not going to dry up anytime soon, but I've got to find a way to taper it down, and that's what we're doing. Let's see. Question. Can I glue a second bridge plate against the first bridge plate, which is too narrow for the string tension? The only solution I see for my guitar is I'm not skilled enough to anything else. Well, Philip, it's kind of a loaded question. I would say yes, you could do that. And yes, it might fix your problem. I think what I would think about is, let's say you have a narrow bridge plate in there. I think I would think about expanding the bridge plate. For instance, say it's only 1 inch wide, and I've seen them that narrow. I'd put maybe another 1 inch wide behind it, or in front of it, or maybe 1/2 inch in front and 1/2 inch behind. I mean, make it a little bigger. Make it a couple of inches, big that way. So I would expand it first. And then if it's still too thin, and of course if you do expand it, you want to make it the same thickness as what's there already. Then if it's still too thin and you're still getting too much arch or bulge in your top, then you might go over it with another thin layer. And that it's not the best method, but it should work. And if you use quality wood, I don't think you'll notice a problem doing it that way. The only thing I would be careful of is your glue squeeze out, and try to keep it all clean and neat as much as you can. It will pay off in the long run if you do that. So Philip, I hope that answers your question. You're not really doing anything real bad there. It's not the way I would prefer to do it, but I have done that sort of thing, believe it or not, on an inexpensive instrument that just wouldn't warrant all the time to try to get the old bridge plate out, etc. and so forth. So it is, it's not a bad method. Next question. Can true oil be sprayed? Yes. In fact, that's how I have been doing this mandolin. I tell you this about the spraying. True oil will gum up your spray gun, so you really do need to clean it each and every time very well. And when I say clean it, I don't mean you have to take it apart exactly, but you need to maybe put in what I do is I put in some mineral spirits, shake it up real good, spray that all through, even take it and disconnect it, pull the trigger, let some of it just run out, put it back, put the hose back on it, spray it some more, and just monkey with it like that. And that's with the mineral spirits, maybe just 1 inch in the bottom of your cup. Get rid of that, and then I put lacquer thinner in there and do the same thing again. That works while you're spraying the instrument. When you're complete, that's over a period of several days, okay? So you spray it several days in a row. But when you're done finally spraying it, then you probably should take your gun apart and clean it really good, because that varnish, it kind of sticks to everything, and it will eventually gum up your gun. Not that you can't undo that and fix it, because I've done it, and you can take it apart and clean it. But even your lacquer can do the very same thing. So it's not like I'm picking on True Oil, but you should just know that, yeah, you can spray it, but you really do want to keep your gun really clean if you want to do a good job. Now that's the first part of it. The second part about spraying True Oil is, I can't overemphasize how thin of a coat you want to put on it. You can't go over it 3 times in one spot, or you will get runs. You go across it, drop down, go across it, drop down, go across it. Do not overlap it a lot, and just a light spray. Get out in very good light where you can see how much you're putting on, and put on the least amount you can put on. Trust me, you will thank me later if you do it that way, because it will run. It's the runniest stuff you've ever worked with. That's the negative of it compared to the lacquer. The lacquer, I don't have much trouble with lacquer running at all. It really works well. I mean, unless you just go nuts with it and spray a lot of the lacquer on, it won't run very much. This will run like crazy because it takes longer to dry, partly is the reason. But anyway, so just the True Oil sprays very well, but you just got to do it very thin coats, incredibly thin coats. Hopefully that answers your question there. George, let's see here. I saw a question and now it's gone. I don't know where it went. Maybe it got retracted? I don't know. Well, here's Michael's question. It says, which material is best for nut and saddle for acoustic guitars? Well, we use deer antler here, Michael, but any bone is fine. If you use bone, you'll probably just about as well as the deer antler. Some people would tell you they can tell a real obvious difference between the two. I personally can't tell that much difference. I know the deer antler probably is a tiny bit harder than standard bone. And the reason I say that, and I'm not even sure that's true, but the reason I say that is because they fight with their antlers. So that's got to be a very strong bone. So I would say that the antler might be just a little bit stronger. And the main reason I use antler over regular bone is antler is ready to use right off the deer, where regular bone has to be boiled or something, or cleaned and all kinds of things. Otherwise it can rot. Anyway, antler's easier to use, I guess, and antler is also thicker in terms of making the deer antler saddles for the mandolins. Regular bone it's hard to find a piece of regular bone thick enough. So that's why I do what I do, and in my opinion, any bone or antler would be great for your guitar. Plastic, I'm not a big fan of that, and even the tusk stuff is... The tusk is better than your standard plastic, but it's still a plastic. And I don't think any of them match the bone, in my opinion, at least. That's just my opinion. Everybody has one. You can rub True Oil on using a white Scotch-Brite. Yes, I'm sure you could rub it on with a lot of things. I've seen people use their fingers. I use a brush. I actually prefer to use a brush over anything myself if I'm going to put it on by hand. But the spraying really does a nice job. So if you can spray it, I'd spray it. But boy, be careful about how thick you do it. Keep it as thin as possible. Do cellulose finishes have a place? Well, nitrocellulose, that's what we've always used. I don't know if that's the question you're asking for sure, but the nitrocellulose is a lacquer finish. There are acrylic finishes. There's all kinds of different kinds of water-based lacquers now. There's all kinds of finishes. The old finish used on lots of old guitars is the nitrocellulose lacquer. And it's a very good finish. It's hard to beat, really. Oil varnishes are very good as well. How did Caleb come by? He seems to add nice touch and variety to your video with the Axl Rose headgear. Well, Caleb is here by the fact that he sent in a video when I asked for videos. At one time I said, okay guys, I've decided I'm going to entertain the possibility of having an apprentice. And I instantly got like 6 videos, and then I cut it off after the 6. And Caleb was one of the 6 videos. He came from the Kansas City, Missouri area. And I just liked his video the best. And so that's why he's here and the rest of them aren't. And it worked out for me. So I'm a happy guy too. So it worked out good. Caleb may not be as happy. I don't know. When you spray true oil, how much do you thin it? I do not thin it at all. I spray it direct. I use about roughly 50 pound PSI pressure to spray it. And I'm using a, what do you call that? HVLP gun, or high volume, low pressure. I think that's what that stands for. So I'm using a gravity fed gun, and I don't thin it at all. And I think if you did thin it, I don't know if you'd have more trouble with it, or maybe it would dry a little faster. So maybe you wouldn't. I don't know. I haven't thinned it. That's all I can tell you. Okay, be sure to put a question mark in front of your question, otherwise I'm going to miss you. I have a feeling. Are there any blushing issues with the True Oil? Not so far. Definitely with the nitrocellulose lacquer. But let me again point out my solution. I've shown this before, but let me just tell you for sure, this is what you want if you're going to spray nitrocellulose lacquer. You don't need this for True Oil, but you do need it for nitrocellulose lacquer, and get this one here specifically, because this is the only one I've tried that works. All the rest of them are just crap. That's the best way I can explain it. I've tried them all, or I shouldn't say I've tried them all, because I haven't, I'm sure. I'm sure there's others out there I haven't tried. But I have tried a bunch of them, and this is the only one that works, and it works really well. I mean, it works like 10 times better than the rest of them. Okay, next question. I'm sure I'm missing people. When is Caleb's next video due? I don't know. I think we've got one coming out real soon. Have you tried bee stings for your hands? I was a beekeeper. Yes, I've tried bee stings. I never noticed any help from that. I've had arthritis for years and years and years, and I was a beekeeper years ago, and I haven't noticed any help at all. In fact, I wouldn't say I'm not one of those people that needs an EpiPen at all. But I swell incredibly from bee stings. I mean, like, incredibly. If one of them stings my hand, my fingers get like twice the size. It's just crazy. But anyway, so I quit doing the bee thing because it just wasn't. Mainly, honestly, it wasn't because of the stings. It was mainly because I just couldn't keep them through the winter. They are very difficult to keep anymore with all the diseases and all the problems they have. I take my hat off to those real beekeepers that can really do that. Let's see here. Boy, they're scrolling up the screen fast. is a small bulge 2 millimeter height behind bridge and a small dip in front of the bridge on a classical guitar something to worry? When should I have it looked at? Well, yeah, George, I would keep an eye on it. Especially if you notice it getting worse, I would definitely do something. As long as it's stable, I probably think you're probably okay. But if you see it getting worse over, a period of several months or whatever, I think you better have it looked at. How is an electric guitar set up different than an acoustic guitar? Well, I am definitely not an electric guitar expert at all. But in the terms of the frets and the action, and in terms of intonation and all of that, it's basically the same. There's very little difference, at least in my opinion. Some electric guitar gurus might think there's some differences, but in my opinion, it's very, 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 very similar. I don't see much difference at all. I guess if I'd put a caveat on there, the difference would be that typically acoustic guitars are set up a little higher than electric guitars, mostly because you hit the acoustic guitar a little bit harder to get the sound volume out. And if you got a lot of string vibration there and you get it down real low, you're gonna buzz, and you're gonna hear it more on an acoustic than you will even on an electric. At least that's my opinion. And again, I'm sticking to my opinion. Let's see, the next thing. Should I attempt to refinish cracking laminate vintage instrument before reattaching the bridge? Well, that's an open question. I don't know that I know how to answer that, because I'd almost have to see that to know what to tell you. But, in terms of refinishing, the general rule of thumb is you don't refinish them if you don't have to, especially on a vintage instrument. I don't know if that helps you with your question or not. Okay, what acoustic strings do I prefer? Mark is asking, basically. Mark, for my opinion, it's phosphor bronze strings all the way. I really have tried in fact, Rosa String Works, I used to sell probably, before the internet, I probably sold as many strings as just about anybody in the country, at least for a small business, let's say it that way. I'm sure I wasn't as big as a lot of the bigger businesses, but anyway, I sold a lot of strings. I carried a lot of different kinds. I tried them all, and for me, phosphor bronze was just, way above everything else. And it really, for me personally, and I know some people will argue with this to their grave, and that is that they think there's a big difference between Martin phosphor bronze and GHS and Diodario, and in my opinion, I can't tell one bit of difference. I mean, all things being exactly the same now, I'm talking the exact same gauge, all of those kinds of things the same, and they use phosphor bronze and steel core and etc., and you don't change anything. The Diodario and the GHS sound identical to me. I don't hear a bit of difference. So that's my opinion again, and I'm sticking to that one. But to me, phosphor bronze is where it's at for 90% of the people. Now, here's the caveat. There are certain people that, can't wear gold, just as an example. Or there's certain people that can't wear silver or whatever. Because of their skin reacting to it. And it's kind of the same way with the finishes on your strings. Some people, even phosphor bronze will go dead right away. for those people, I would recommend you try nickel, believe it or not. You'd be surprised how different kinds of materials will react different to your skin. And, like if you're having trouble with strings going dead really quickly, try some different types of material. That's where you'll find your answer. That's the best I can help you with that. Okay, let's see. The next one here. Is it worth buying a vintage guitar if it doesn't have a truss rod, like those old Sears catalog guitars, or should I hold out and wait for one with a truss rod? Well, if it's an old guitar and it's got a straight neck, I'd say you don't need a truss rod. I'd say it'd just be based on the condition of that particular guitar. I don't think I'd let the truss rod enter into the equation all that much, unless it's got a really bowed neck, And if it does, well, then it needs a truss rod, and therefore you either want to steer away from that or take it apart and put a truss rod in it, one of the two. So hopefully that answers your question. Maybe a guitar build-off with Jerry and Caleb. Okay, sure. Can we just base it on speed alone? Because I know I'd kick his butt that way. Anyway, let's see. The next question. I just want to say how much I enjoy your videos. Have you ever tried tinting shellac and using it as pore filler? I've tried this on the last few jobs and it worked out great. Not so much as pore filler, but I've tinted all kinds of finishes. Like I've even tinted the True Oil. I tinted it with the alcohol varnish, dyes, and I used an airbrush and darkened the edges and things like that. And I've also done the same thing with nitrocellulose lacquer. I am not a fan of shellac, to be perfectly honest with you. Shellac is a great sounding finish, like these, what do you call it? French polish finishes are shellac based, and I'm just not a big fan of those at all because they turn milky white if you sweat on them. So I'm not real big on shellac, period, on instruments, even though it has one of the best sounds there is. I mean, it's a great sounding finish. There's no question about that. But it's also not very durable. As an undercoat and as a pore filler, that might be okay. And then you top it with something else. So I might give it a try. I haven't really thought of it that way. But really, for me, I don't care about staining it. You would just use the shellac as a pore filler. The staining part, I don't think is an issue. In fact, I wouldn't want to stain it. I would just want to fill the pores, say, on that Paduke, and without any stain, because I want the Paduke to show through natural. Okay, good thought though. Let's see. Where's the next one here? Do you suggest someone starting building instruments start with cigar box instruments? I don't know, Micah. I guess you could do that. I know a number of people who have done that. I didn't start that way. I started probably on the hardest instrument. I started on the F-style mandolin. I don't think there's one much more difficult to build than that, really. I built just about everything, I guess. And, I think you can start wherever your passion is. Read up on it, study up on it, watch a lot of videos on it, etc., and proceed slowly and carefully. And I think the most important thing about starting to build an instrument is don't let it overwhelm you thinking that you're building a guitar. Right now, at the moment, you're only building the tail block, or you're only building this one side, or you're only building the fretboard. Just think about it like that. And that's all you're building. Set that aside when you're done with it. Now you're building something else. That's the way to think of building an instrument, and then it won't be such a big, overwhelming task. Hopefully that answers your question, Micah. Val is also a beekeeper. That doesn't surprise me at all. I would have expected Val to be a beekeeper. In fact, I would have bet on that one. Let's see here. I'm trying to read through, find some more question marks. I think the thing just scrolled way up on me there. Do you like a small amount of fretboard relief or none at all on a mandolin? Well, Rick, the truth of it is I'm not big on relief. Less relief is more, in my opinion. So there you go. You don't need a lot of relief, and especially on a mandolin, you don't need a lot of relief. In my opinion, on a guitar, you don't need a lot of relief. I think there's so much hype to that relief thing. I mean, I seriously believe there's so much hype to it. And one of these days, when I get time, I'm going to try to draw this out for people so that it makes sense to them. Let's see if we can do it right now. This may just, you know, as you can tell, this is a spur-of-the-moment idea, so let's just see. If you think of it, let me just find something I can use for a straight edge here. If you think of it as a straight line, and say this is your fretboard here, that line. Okay, now you put, and then let's say it's a slight angle. So this is your guitar angle here. Okay? And so now your guitar top is angled like that. So it's actually slanted down a little bit compared to your neck, if you will, or your neck is slanted down compared to your top, whichever way you want to think of it. It doesn't matter. Yeah, it's hard to, I'm not drawing this very well. It should have been drawn like that. But anyway, my point is that your neck comes up here, and now it gets to that top. Your neck comes up, it gets to the top. Now it has to bend flat down to your top. I mean, all necks do that. And if you don't think they do that, then you're just not thinking. They have to. There's a slight angle to the neck, and then they have to bend right here at the joint, at the top. Now, some don't because they put an extension under it and they just keep it at the same angle. But those are setting off your top a little bit then. The point about the relief is when you introduce, and I'm going to exaggerate it, but when you introduce relief and you pull it down here like so, now you've got to press your string down to that relief, and now that spot where you're bending right here is a high spot. You've just created a problem. And they'll almost always buzz right there if you have a lot of relief. You know, it makes almost no sense to me at all why people think they have to have so much relief. You know, I'm just not big on the relief thing. I hope that makes sense to you. Probably doesn't, because that's not I couldn't draw it very well, and you couldn't see what I was drawing anyway, probably. But anyway, I'm not big on the relief thing. One of these days, maybe I'll try to draw up a real nice, dark, drawing and show you what I'm talking about. Thank you, Toby. I appreciate it very much. Let's see here. Looking for more questions. I don't see too many. Yes, one guy agrees with me. Yes, no relief is better for playability. I feel that way. I really do. I'm not big on the relief thing. I think it's way overhyped, just like I think the humidity thing is crazily overhyped. Way overhyped. Just way, 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 way overhyped. You don't need the humidity that people think you do. Okay, I don't see any more questions here, and it's about time that we're over with. Have I ever built an archtop acoustic guitar? The answer is no. But I think. Yeah, I don't think I've ever built an archtop acoustic guitar, but I've worked on a lot of them, and I've built an archtop acoustic upright bass. Does that count? I mean, one of the full-size acoustic archtop, I carved a bass top. That's the closest thing I guess I could say to an archtop that I've carved. Besides the mandolins, they're all archtopped, of course. But no, I haven't done a guitar that I can think of. Do I still play El Comanchero? Well, people don't think I should. That's the truth of it. I have never, not one time in my life, ever said that I have a good version of El Comanchero. I always say that I play it the way I play it. It's not a great version of it. And some people have gone so far as to say I shouldn't play it at all, that my version is the worst they've ever heard, etc. and so forth. I wanted to show you guys one time the comment that came in of how rude this guy was. I mean, if he didn't like it, you just turn it off and go somewhere else. I mean, if I saw him playing something I didn't like, I just turn it off and go somewhere else. But no, he had to be totally insulting and just rude as he could be. And I wrote back to him, I said, I'm sure your mother is really proud of you. That's basically what I said to him. What month is my birthday? And, well, it just passed. November 28th is my birthday. And I am Sagittarius, the archer, which was true. I was an archer for years and years and years and years. Okay, time is up, guys. I'm going to get one more question, and then we're going to call it good here. Okay, the last question I'm going to answer is from Sawdust Live Music. He said he just got here, and you just got here just in the nick of time. What about kerfing for the inside of or the lining is what they typically call it in a violin. The wood I use for that generally is just spruce. And I just use a real thin piece of spruce for the lining in a violin. You could use other woods, but most of the time I believe they use spruce. You could possibly even use maple, I guess, but spruce is easier to bend, it conforms better. And now all of a sudden we're just getting them scrolling up the screen like crazy. I'm going to call it good. Gordon just made a donation. Thank you, Gordon. Guys, I hope you've enjoyed it this morning. I hope it went well with my cell phone, and I hope I don't get billed for a whole bunch of extra minutes. If anybody out there can hook me up with Starlink, I would be eternally grateful. If anybody can hook me up with a different internet carrier, a cellular carrier like Nomad, which I can't get a hold of them for whatever reason. It's pitiful when they don't put their phone numbers on their websites. These web businesses that don't want to be contacted, I just don't understand that. It just makes me ill. So there you go. That's my rant for this morning. Good luck to y'all. Hopefully I'll